Greetings, sunny, awesome, warm, positive vibrations. So today is day 25 of 30 days of relaxation. So a little later today, I got up. I got up early. I'm always up early, but I have some other tasks. So I want to stay consistent with just this vibe of relaxation and deep breathing. So what we're doing is exploring this simple practice of deep breathing. So we're breathing all the time anyway. So it's totally free. No gurus are required, no religion, just simply the practice of deep breathing, however, very intentionally, listening to the rhythm and the cadence of our breath, paying attention to where our thoughts are going, the rise and fall of our chest. We're just exploring to see if it can make a difference in how relaxed we feel, particularly if we are triggered, right? It's very easy. It is so easy to be triggered. I don't even know if we realize the extent to which we're triggered by all the different things that are coming at us through the screen and through our ears constantly, even when you're walking downtown or when you're around other people. There's so much stuff constantly coming at your senses. And so the brain is constantly, greetings, the brain is constantly processing all of this information, and it affects our rate of breathing. It affects our stress level. The stress level affects whether or not we're pumping cortisol, which can affect our ability to balance out at a healthy weight. So we're definitely being affected by all the stress. So we want to just explore. Can it make a difference if we just intentionally deep breathe for just a few minutes a day? So what do you have to lose but just some stress? And you can feel free, being that this is only like a few minutes, you can feel free to check in maybe perhaps in the afternoon before you have your meal, or maybe perhaps in the evening before you retire, and you go to rest and you plug back in to recharge. So if it's just a few minutes, and if it feels like it's easy, if things occur to us in our subconscious as it's easy, then it's more attractive. Just a few minutes. What do you have to lose? Let's see what could happen, right? With 30 days of intentional deep breathing. Also, what we have been exploring is contemplation, and from time to time, other little tools, right, that are accessible and often free to us that can help us to relax. So I'm also thinking, as we're coming close to 30 days, what we want to do next. I strive to make a positive use of the internet and my energy. I love the idea of my energy being multiplied, or whatever I'm doing, whatever I put out in the world. If it reaches someone and it's a positive vibration, I like to think of that as multiplying. Almost like I think of like multiplying money or multiplying currency, right? Our energy and our attention is a form of currency. Vitality and energy occurs to me as a form of currency. So while I'm here, because I won't be here forever, we will all lay down this code called the body. How can I multiply and expand my experience? Like, who do I want to be while I'm out here? Right? So all of these things are different things that come up for me, which is why I love quiet and the quiet of the early days so much. So that being said, because I'm starting to get excited, right? Starting to get excited. So let's deep breathe, right? So you're welcome to find a position that's comfortable for you, where you can be mindful of not slumping, right? Where your spine can be up nice and tall, and you have a good amount of, you're conscious of having a long neck, right? This is part of your spine, right? Your cervical spine, keeping space between your shoulder and your ear. So sometimes you may not notice like that we're like this or like this, but something you can watch, right? I love frames of reference, is if you look at your clavicle, and if you can see, right, if it looks bunched up, you may need to just relax, because that is a response to stress. Also, like if I retract, right, his protraction, his retraction, right? So if I look at my clavicle, and if I retract my shoulders, wow, it makes your chest open up and allows you to appear taller, like your presence is also energetic, right? The way that our bodies are positioned can elicit different emotions and make us feel better, right? Sometimes when we feel down, we have a tendency to go kind of like a plant that's drooping, right? As opposed to if I look at the plants in the garden, a lot of them, they keep turning to face the sun no matter how I turn the plant. So having a nice tall posture will allow blood flow to go to the brain nice and easy, and oxygen, right? Oxygen. So we can't do anything without the breath. So in a nice comfortable position, you can feel free to put a yoga block underneath your glutes to give you more height. If your hips are very, very tight, that can allow you to sit with more comfort. The body being uncomfortable can be a distraction from relaxation, right? If there's itching and pain in your hips and pain in your lower back, just a small practice can, the quieter you get in cultivating listening and quiet and the inner listening, it can really heighten your awareness of what is going on in your body temple, right? So if we just slow down. So your eyes can be closed or open. You can find a position that's comfortable for your hands. If you want to hear whatever feels intuitive to you, if you want to put your hands on your knees, totally, up to you. And let's breathe. So that is so simple, just breathing. So do you feel more relaxed? This is a good time if you like to perhaps ask a question of your own onboard divine innate intelligence that we are all born with. Question, right? There's something that's called contemplation that my godmother introduced to me many years ago. So contemplation, you can ask a question. It could be something you're working on or working through. For example, let's say like a vice or if you're easily triggered, or if you have a looped pattern, perhaps of a undesirable communication method with your partner or your spouse or your child, if you're easy to anger. And if this is not ideally how you would like to respond, you can ask a question like, what do I need to do differently? Right? You can even ask a question like, what do I really like about myself? Right? And or what would I like to really get done today? Any kind of question, if you ask it of your own onboard intelligence, the answer actually will come to you either now or while you're moving about the day. As you find in the garden, when I'm cleaning, in the garden, when I'm cleaning, when I lay on the floor sometimes, and which I sometimes would just lay on the floor and do nothing, right? Even if it's for a few minutes, it can be a very nice reset. So your own onboard intelligence, not needing any, you're welcome, um, any middleman or middle woman. This is something that we all born with, and it's free. The breath is free, and your own intelligence. What I think is really interesting is I don't know that we're really encouraged to go within for guidance, right? A lot of times I think we have been trained, or I could say I have been trained, and I don't think with any ill intention, to pray to something outside of myself. Now I know that we are connected, we have all these ideas, and humans really, we're just really trying to all figure it out, right? And making some things up as we go along. But the visuals, right, in the program was so trained to seek something outside of ourselves. And even some of the quote unquote prayers and affirmations that I came up with, I think can invalidate our trust in ourselves, right? I don't know that I watched that modeled, right, or that was a conversation, um, to no fault of the adults around me, right? Really trusting yourself. And today with memes and greeting cards and all that stuff, we hear um, a lot of information and quotes, but sometimes somehow it appears that somehow it doesn't penetrate, it doesn't land, and it is not. It doesn't show the comprehension of all of these memes and the so-called wisdom that we're googling. It doesn't seem to end up land in our behavior. So I'm always fascinated from a child to what drives our behavior. And I'm really clear. I'm really, really clear. Um, and we acquire wisdom with experience, sometimes even through suffering, that fear is an easy way that humans are manipulated. And I always say this all the time, I always forget one of the fears, right? And I'm sure there are more than six, but there are six basic fears: um, old age, um, illness, death, poverty, loss of love. Oh, and today I remember number six. Number six is criticism. And this may seem overly simple, but I love to break things down to the simplest common denominator. If you just think about those six basic fears, it becomes really clear how easily it is extremely easy to manipulate human beings. I think even in spite of ourselves, due to fear, and fear is injected, I have observed, through trauma, right? And so conversations and the modeling of resolved trauma, this is not something that we've really seen. I think one of the most positive things out of the church, my experience of the church growing up, was the music. There was a lot of fear. And even in a lot of the religious texts, there was so much fear, even in reading it on my own, other than the popularized verses that we get. And I think it's very few. We get the same verses recycled over and over. When I read a lot of some of these religious texts I came up with on my own, a lot of it was very gory. Sound like a kind of like a horror movie inside of it. So there's so much fear. And then also, why I love the garden, and one of my experiences in traveling and living for some time in the bush. Um, certain things are a fact of life. Let's say, for example, my sister and I could have gotten killed by a poisonous snake. That was really scary. But I also realized with that experience that it wasn't personal with the snake. It's just the nature of the snake, and seeing tarantulas and these really ants that can really pick the flesh off of you. I realized, like, in nature, a lot of it is not even personal. So, yeah, the process of gardening and being out in nature can really, I call it my favorite church is nature, because of the relaxation, the peace. I don't feel that somebody's trying to scam me. The plants are not trying to scam me. Simply what I put in, they reciprocate and give me back. And then really it's Mother Nature in the caring of plants. And even in a city environment, when I had a smaller a space in a city environment, I was always, for some reason, determined to grow some food, which I was able to do in a small apartment. And all of these things I found is really good quality time spent with myself. And we can spend years, I think, in reviewing, I think we spent so many years of our life chasing tail and chasing relationships outside of ourselves, praying outside of ourselves, chasing a lot of clothes. Although I enjoy clothes and relationships, but most of those clothes went in the garbage can. Most of those clothes went into the garbage can. And if you look at it, we stressed ourselves out trying to acquire a lot of things that go in the garbage can. And at the same time, we live in a material world, and I have no problem with material possession. But just when we're getting stressed out over it, right? Particularly like now during these interesting times, there's a lot of undercurrent or undertone in the communications of fear of things that we have not no longer having them, right? Relationships or a home. It's a lot of fear, and fear, I call it a backdoor mentality, can really have us creating things and situations, the very thing that we don't want. We can draw it in nutrition and fitness for years. I realized just patterns and observe, and most women, we're observers of patterns, right? Our bodies are hooked up to patterns, right? With our menstrual cycles and so on. But I noticed with lots of fear, we eat mindlessly for entertainment, or so-called entertainment, or to distract ourselves, or to soothe ourselves, and to pacify ourselves, right? And so the very thing that we don't want, let's say if we don't want to have extra adipose or fatty tissue on the body, on healthy tissue, but the nervousness and anxiety will keep us medicated, right? So as I can watch with clients, because a lot of times it's easier to see other people than it is ourselves, I can see the pattern of the anxiety and the fears and looped dialogue and memories of things, of traumatic memories, has us medicating. And even if we manage to exercise, we're creating and drawing to us literally the very things that we don't want. Isn't that interesting? I love going in the garden. It's such peace. Yes, yes, yes. So even though, how can I say? Even though there is and I make an effort to be very practical, right? I think even, a lot of rituals or quote unquote spirituality, how do you try to be spiritual? That's just an alignment, because we are spirit with like a vehicle that we're walking around in. But although there is a frame of thinking that is very, very fear-based, I think, and I suspect, and I've experienced to a certain degree, that we can cultivate a way of thinking that is not fear-based, and it is a choice. And even if we're not familiar, or if it's not habitual, we can exercise our mental muscles. And it can be, when you try, you can find this uh, challenging, right? And not just with affirmations and saying words, but the things that are going deep into our subconscious. We can choose a different habitual frequency. For example, the lyrics and the music that we're listening to, I find, can elicit a certain kind of mood and can drop or activate pictures in our mind. Music that we play, that's one of my biggest tools. The garden, um, when we quiet down and we become more aware of our internal dialogue that's going, because it's always a dialogue that doesn't stop. It's like a ticker tape, and it's like a chitter chatter in the mind. So I think it can be very humbling these brains, right, that we have that have mind or mental activity. It is amazing how much it is literally a computer and functioning off of, what do they used to call it, the disk operating system, or the operating system in the computer has been pretty much set before us, even as children. And so my son had pointed out to me, in trying to free up space on my computer, he said, "Mom, you know that even when I delete and I empty out the trash on the computer," he said, "You know it's still there. It actually just moves to another part of the computer." I was like, wow, that's such a great analogy. Even though we may not be able to change things that happened before or old programming, we can inject new programming in very purposefully. So I resolved that if we've been programmed, if we're going to be programmed, you might as well program yourself intentionally. So that is part of the what we're exploring with, in being very intentional about the breath, even if it's just for a few minutes. We can make ourselves, right? It's not food based, right? This is not dependent on food, because everything is not about food. As much as I love food, I love to prepare food, and food is beautiful. A lot of times we're choosing food when it's not the physical food that we really need. So I've stayed on here longer today. There are most of the videos in this 30 days of relaxation. So no stuff loaded into the word. Um, but most of them are really like 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. And they're just a few, maybe two of the videos, a little bit longer, with just some of the, I'm not going to say instruction, but just me sharing some of the practices that I use for relaxation. So you can see that inside of the series. Hopefully you find them useful, a motivation. Again, please feel free to relax. Lay on the floor if you need to. It's free. There are things that we have access to that I think we can really underestimate. Self-care practices, like, oh, those little things don't make a difference. But what do you have to lose with some of your stress? So I'm sending you all some warm, positive vibrations. This is what I was channeling today in terms of playing in my hair. Yes, yes. It is a great way to start the day intentionally. And moving forward, I just want to move forward with this. That one of the biggest tools in my toolbox of self-care that I have figured out, I think from a young age, being blessed with the gift of reading and a library, is I realized if I didn't have people around me or family members, everybody is on their own path. But I realized if I didn't have people around me that had similar interests, not to make them bad or wrong, that it occurred to me as an epiphany. I could read a book and it gives me access to somebody else's mind or what works for them. And I would say I've expanded on that as I've matured into um, consciously seeking to create support for myself. Support works. Support works. And may not always be people that are physically around you. Let's say, like, if you're endeavoring to eat healthier, or if you're endeavoring to educate yourself on communication skills. I think it's something that all people, especially Afro people, that we could use. You can make a positive use of the internet. It can be used just like anything, like fire can burn and destroy, and it can also purify, right? We can strive to create. I mean, maybe perhaps look around yourself, because you can hear a lot of people say, I don't exercise because I don't have support. I may not be doing this or that self-care practice because I don't have support. So I know for years, I've always been very particular about investing in myself in terms of books, tapes. Back then, even when they were cassette tapes, I've had some cassette tapes for years. When I traveled a lot, I would take a recorder with me, usually some elastic bands. These are things I've done for decades, and my sneakers and a dress that I could wash out in the sink when I worked in the travel industry. But I'm big on creating I'm big on creating support for myself, even if that's what I'm listening to. I've had a little DVD player in the food preparation area for years to keep company. I to enjoy really my time with myself. Also, I was educating myself at the same time. So that is something that we have the opportunity to do with the internet, to make a positive use of the internet. There's ambient music that has no lyrics. Sometimes I don't need to hear any lyrics. There's ambient music at different megahertz or different tones that can relax us. There's also some beautiful 4K, I guess the way that it's shot, some 4K video of nature. So for those folks that may have those big gigantic flat screens, there's like some really vivid pictures of sea creatures underneath the sea, of just nature, watching the plants move. You know, you can make a positive use of the internet. So it's a choice. Creating some support for yourself. And then also people. If I was me, sometimes I play my own video. You know, a lot of times I do also for myself. I'll play my own video back and I can hear my own voice. And it's a way of me supporting myself. Or if there's someone that has a really positive vibration and is beaming and radiating health and their self-care, the energetics of their self-care is showing up, I may put them on while I'm cleaning or cutting up my vegetables as a support for myself. So I invite you to create support for yourself, right? Create some support for yourself, right? Because this internet, right, is allowing us to communicate, you know, from different countries. I think yesterday we were chatting, somebody was in London, somebody was in Florida, sometimes people from Africa. So that's a positive use of the internet. So glass half full or glass half empty. So in any event, this is, I'm going to hit quite a while this morning. I'm inviting you all to create a great day on purpose because you said so. I'm inviting you to take a moment to feed and nourish yourself with the most beautiful, water-rich, nutrient-dense, beauty food, the most peaceful consumption that you have available to you, working with the best of what is available to you, whatever. And that might be frozen, that might be conventional, you might have to wash it off. But the most peaceful consumption you have available to you, and you can also go inside and ask yourself, what do I need to eat? Touch your midsection. I invite you to touch your midsection or your belly. And if you can feel without judgment, without condemnation, common sense judgment is different from condemnation judgment. But touching your midsection and feel like, do you have extra waste that's there from eating or consuming mindlessly as a response to stress? And you can ask yourself, what are ideal foods? And you have enough intelligence to be guided. So that can be discerned in quiet. Anyway, y'all create a great day on purpose. And I will see you tomorrow. Also, okay, I'm really gonna get off. Check out, I have discovered, have been using as a manifestation tool, TikTok, believe it or not. I didn't care for Snapchat, but I have been using, have been using TikTok as a manifestation tool. So feel free to check out Kwasa with a K, Peaceful Eating on TikTok. And I share some visuals, sometimes of food in the garden. You may have to scroll on Body-Culinary on IG. All right, y'all. See you soon.